Hi, today I'm going to be working on a board for somebody who tried to replace their own hard drive, and as a result of trying to replace their own hard drive, the machine is dead. One of the things that I like to talk about with labor rates in general is when you set labor rates, set it according to the dumbest thing you've ever had an employee do, and you'll notice that you have a lot less guilt in terms of setting labor rates for things that you find simple. So, there are a lot of things where people will do it for free or on the house because they find that it's just such an easy thing to do. But even again, just think of this. Like, this person tried to replace a hard drive, and I'm not saying they're dumb. They didn't seem dumb when they came in, but this is supposed to be the simplest thing to do inside of a laptop computer. And while doing this seemingly easy task, which I'm not going to sit here and say is difficult, this is easy as shit. I would tell my own 66-year-old dad that you can do this yourself. You don't need me for it. The board died. And, it's just one of those things where it's, I don't feel bad that things cost money. I'll always tell people when something is very, very simple and easy, and, for the love of God, please don't pay me for it. But when I accept money for things, it's like, this is why. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start measuring around to see why this is dead. This is an 820-3115 board. So the first thing that I should have here is 12 volts on PP bus G3 hot, and that is 12 volts. The second thing that we should have is PP3V42 at 3.42 volts, and we have that. Third thing we should have is PP5VS5 at 5 volts, and we have that. The fourth thing we should have is PP5VS3 at 5 volts, and we don't have shit. Okay, so now we get to hunt and figure out why we don't have PP5VS3. The first thing I'm going to do is unplug this person's drive cable. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove a chip that is responsible for sending the N-trip signal. So to give you an idea of what the N-trip signal is and what I'm talking about here. So as I said in one of the other videos on what is an enable signal and how does an integrated circuit work, a lot of chips that are responsible for, there we go. So a lot of chips that are responsible for power rails in a machine have something called an enable pin or an N-trip circuit. So it's not going to actually start the power supply working until it sees that there's power at the enable pin. The way this works is the opposite. Once it will be off if you send the N-trip signal to ground. I'm being trolled here. Here we go. It'll be off if you send N-trip to ground, but if you stop sending N-trip to ground, so this is N-trip over here, it will turn itself on. So I want to see what that PP5VS3 voltage becomes when I decide to get rid of the N-trip signal. Does it not go up at all? Does it go up? Does it go up only partially because the chip is not working properly? The only way to find out is to remove this chip, Q7221. We're going to remove that and see what happens. So let's see, Q7221. That brings us over here on the motherboard. And let's see what happens when we take that off. Let's see if we get any progress. Let's see if anything turns on. So we're going to switch over here to the microscope camera. All right, so unfortunately for a short period of time, actually for damn near 10 minutes of troubleshooting, there was no sound because I forgot to plug my microphone back in. And that video just doesn't really make sense without it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to explain what happened during that time that there was no video. So the first thing that I tried to do is I removed Q7221 on the schematic for an 820-3115 board. Now, here's the way U7200 works. It will always have a voltage on the N-trip pin, and it will always be trying to produce PP5VS3. However, if the voltage that's created by U7200 at the N-trip pin gets shorted to ground, let's say by a transistor that's going to ground based on an input signal to enable or disable the power line, then it will not create that voltage rail. So the first thing I did is I removed Q7221, and I wanted to see if it would start creating a voltage rail. Again, if it would create, let's say, 1 or 2 volts, I'd know that something with the buck converter was fucked up. If it would create a full voltage, then I'd know maybe something with the PCH was fucked up. The PCH is what sends the signal to Q7221 to tell it that it should start creating power or not letting power through so that U7200's N-trip pin can get shorted to ground or not get shorted to ground. I wanted to see what it was. Is this a chip problem where it's not creating power at all, or is this a problem with the enable circuitry? That's the first thing you want to do. Again, before you start troubleshooting a circuit that may be working, see if it's simply not being told to turn on. I did that, and I got nowhere. I got 0 volts. So then I tried checking for a short to ground using my multimeter. And you can see how I've checked for short to ground countless times in other videos. What I did is I put the multimeter to diode mode. After the multimeter was in diode mode, I put the red probe on ground, put the red probe on, thank you, magnet, the red probe on ground, the black probe on where PP5ES3 is supposed to be, and there was no short. So then what I wanted to do is I wanted to see if there was the only problem. I wanted to see if that was all that was wrong with it. So what I did is I put the power supply to 5 volts. I attached the ground of the power supply to the computer, and then I attached the power of the power supply, the plus, at 5 volts to where PP5ES3 is supposed to be on the board. And when I was done with all this, it still didn't work. Then what I decided to do is I decided, you know what went wrong with this? So the problem with this machine is that the hard drive, the guy tried to replace his own hard drive and it didn't work. The hard drive is only powered by PP5ESO. PP5ESO is created from PP5ES3, which is controlled by U7201. So if anything funky happened during the hard drive replacement, the most likely place that I should look to, in my brain is U7201 or U7200. And that's what I did. And then I wind up replacing this chip, and that's the step that you're going to see next, and then you're going to see if that works. So again, one of the things I wanted to mention that I was mentioning in that video, the portion of the video that got erased, is on power lines in the machine. So PP5VS3 is not a different power line than PP5ESO. So what does 5ESO, PP, all this crap mean? PP, just think that stands for power, not piss. PP, power. Then 5V, 5 volts. Now SO, S3, S5, that's probably where you're getting confused. SO means that's a power rail when the computer's on. So S are power states, so that's what the S is, state. S5, computer is off. S3, computer is hibernating or computer is sleeping. And SO, computer is on. Now, there are things that you need to have 5 volts on. There are places you need to have 5 volts on here even when the computer is sleeping so that, it retains the contents of your memory and it's ready to go as soon as you hit the power button again. But there are also parts of this computer that are only on when it's in an SO state. For example, the CPU. There's no reason for the CPU to be using power. There's no reason for the graphics chip to be using power while it's sleeping. So those are only on when it's in an SO state. There's no need to create a different 5 volt for both of these. There's absolutely no need. But so what we do here, what the Apple designers and most motherboard designers do, is they simply take the power from that S3 rail, and then they say, okay, when we tell you to, send the power from the S3 rail through to all this other stuff. So there'll be a transistor in between the S3 rail and all the components on the SO that need SO power, like the CPU, like the hard drive, like the graphics chip, and so on and so forth. So that's how that works. So when a part of the computer sends a signal to that little transistor, it'll allow all that PP5ES3 power to become PP5ESO power. The hard drive is powered by PP5ESO. This chip controls PP5ES3, PP5ES5, PP3V3S5. It has nothing to do with PP5ESO. But PP5ESO comes from PP5ES3. And that is why this chip got blown up. Something fucked up happened with the hard drive. Something fucked up happened with the 5 volts going to the hard drive. That fucks up the chip that creates PP5ES3, which is responsible for PP5ESO. And this is all stuff you'll see if you simply search the schematic, if you simply look through and have a diagnostic mindset and you're using your brain. And that's that. Okay, I just had my food. I'm a little fatter and a little bit more comfortable. Now let's get started on replacing some of this stuff here. Okay, we're going to get the machine under the microscope. And this, I must replace this chip for at least 50% of the board repairs that I do. There's always a PP5VS3, always a TPS51125 related problem. Let's get this here so I don't get cancer, as I always like to say. I don't like cancer. I don't wish to get cancer. I don't wish cancer on anybody. Well, I'm sure there are some that I do. I just can't think of their names right now. Okay, remove the old one. Oh, you want to see, don't you? Aren't you guys selfish? You know what I noticed? I think it's in focus up here. And then I look at the screen and it's not in focus. And then when I get it in focus in the screen, it looks much better up here than I thought it would ever look. So, okay, now we're going to take some time because this is the new Hacko heating element that I got. There's nothing like my old, trusty 5-year-old Hacko heating element that was originally on here. Of course the chip's not ready to go. We've only had 15, 20 seconds of the heat at 8 and the air at 15. What a shit. Okay. This thing ain't what it used to be. Too much on the center pad. That's my signature soldering fuck up. Of all the things I like to fuck up when soldering, I'm doing a QFN package. Too much solder on the center pad. And disgusting, isn't it? Oh my god, that's gross. This guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's an idiot. Okay, we'll move it over to where it's supposed to be sitting. This tip is bent a lot more than it used to be. So see how it's bent now? I'm going to be showing you what the newer tip looks like when it comes in. It's going to be a lot better than this and more suited to this work. I'm excited. It's supposed to come in tomorrow. I love Amazon Prime for that. And you know that they're losing money. I mean, it wasn't just the shipping prices, and I know that it wasn't even just guessing about it. It wasn't just looking at the weight and then the price and then laughing at the idea that FedEx would give them the rates that they give them. That's not it. It's just every single time I use Amazon Prime now, it's like, we'll give you this digital download for free. Please, for the love of God, just don't choose 2-day shipping. Like, they have all these ways of begging you not to use the Prime, which makes me happy because it means that they're losing money. So I actually make sure to use the 1 day every time, even though I know they're losing off of it, because I know that they'll often say like the difference between 2-day shipping and 1-day shipping is like $1 or $2, and I know that that's not it. I know they're paying more than $1 for the difference between it. So I'll always choose that shipping, knowing that they're going to lose money on it, because I love seeing Amazon lose money because they're assholes and how they treat people on the Amazon marketplace. They're worse than eBay. So, like, customer buys something on Friday with next day shipping. Customer files A to Z claim on Saturday because he doesn't understand that Saturday is not a business day because he's an idiot. You don't reply within 24 hours because it's Sunday and you're home with your kids or enjoying your life or doing something other than dealing with some cockrag who decides to file a chargeback because he doesn't understand how the fucking world works. And then on Monday, you get, they win the claim. And you know what also happens on Monday? Their package arrives. And they have their money back. And it's just, fuck Amazon. That's the thing. Like eBay, there are a lot of things I hate about eBay. I would never sell on eBay again. And as much as I hate eBay, I kind of understand why they are the way they are. Amazon is just unnecessarily just really, really mean for no fucking reason. And it's really stupid. So as you can see here, my theory was correct. I will open this so you can see that I actually fixed something. Not just making all this crap up. I mean, before, as you saw, it didn't turn on. Now, this was missing PP5ES3, and when I put 5 volts on PP5ES3, it still wasn't turning on. So what I did is I checked, I still suspected that chip, because the 5-volt power rail is the only thing going to the drive, the only power going to the drive, so something had to mess up with the 5-volt power line. I added 5 volts there, and it still didn't turn on. I checked for a short in the 5-volt rail, and none was present, and I really was confused, and then I saw that PP3V3 was not present. PP3V3 is a power rail, PP3V3S5 and PP3V3S3. They're both power rails that are created by the same U7200 chip. So what I decided to do, again, I'm pretty sure I could turn this off. You guys know that it works now. So what I decided to do is I decided to replace the chip that's responsible for both. And when I did, it worked perfectly. So what you're going to notice, the more you watch this channel, the more you're going to notice that TPS51125, it really is a chip that you should have spools of. Like this over here. This may seem like a big spool to you guys that don't do board repair. This is like a 1 week supply for me. This will be gone by the end of the week. It really is that popular a chip. It really does die that often. Does this mean that you're going to start every one of your board repairs by replacing this because Lewis said that it dies often? No, you're going to use your fucking brain and you're going to use the schematic and the board view and everything I've taught you here to find out what your problem is before you jump to the conclusion that you can just follow somebody else's solution to somebody else's problem and apply it to your problem and have it work. But at the same time, this is something that oh, fucking fever. This is something that you need to you should have in stock if you're doing this. And again, just think. If you think, this all becomes a lot easier. Tell me that was on camera. So I have this. Yeah, I have the air filter here. Just actually sucked up my spool of chips. Oh, that's not funny. I hope they're still in there when I open it. Either way, you know what? Even if it's not, that entire spool of chips costs far less than I'm charging this guy for.